Well, I'll tell you, I still think I could do with a little shorter lead in. But, what are you going to do? The boss says that is the intro bumper music, so I guess that's what we're going to play. How is everybody tonight? I hope everybody's in good spirits and had a good time on this April 1st of 2013. I've had a half a dozen people send me very comical April Fool's gags. Matter of fact, I'm scratching my head over some guy in Canada who swears up and down he's got a car he's running on water. But we'll do our best to call his bluff at some point in the near future. In any case, it is indeed Monday. You're watching the Alternative Energy Hour segment on Wide Awake News. And my featured guest for the evening is going to be Sterling Allan of PESN.com. Now, Sterling is a regular guest on my Thursday audio-video presentation that's broadcast from smartscarecrow.com/live. That airs at 9 o'clock on Thursday evenings. That's 9 o'clock Eastern U.S. time. Happy to have anybody stop by who might be interested. He does a weekly segment. But tonight, Sterling's got the Alternative Energy Hour to provide us with his latest insights into the wild and crazy world of exotic alternative energy technologies. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on right now. Sterling, I gave you that warm and glowing introduction. How are you? Are you feeling all warm and fuzzy over that intro I gave you?
Yeah, according to some people, we could have a slogan at Free Energy News where every day is April Fool's Day.
Well, what do you think? You ready to go to Ontario, Canada to see some guy run a car on water?
Well, we like to take these exotic claims and get to the bottom of them, because one of these days, one of these is going to be true.
Well, that's true. One of the things that we keep hoping for is that at some point, some sharp fella working in his garage, working in his basement, tinkering with something that he just doesn't realize is impossible, is going to come through with something really wild. And, we have had some tantalizing evidence that it just might happen at some point. Now, I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but I know you have been on a fundraising quest to try to put together enough funds to go over to Europe, because there's one of these wild and crazy gadgets that some fellow's going to be demonstrating over there. Now, is that your lead-in piece, or you want to save that as the icing on the cake?
No, that's the lead-in.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and give you full screen and let you get. We've got probably about I think 6-7 minutes left in this segment before they interrupt us with commercials. So let's see how much material we can get through before they play the little jingles at us and chase us out of here to do a commercial. Here you go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the thing that got me started back in 2002 covering this exotic free energy technology was a claim to an all-magnet motor actually it was in South America, South Africa, Johannesburg. And I got excited about that. Can you imagine magnets repelling magnets to create rotation motion? Physicists say that's impossible, that these static energy sources can't get you net energy. And from a conservation point of view, that's true. However, there's no such thing as a free energy technology that works, that is a closed system, that you're getting energy from nothing. It's coming from somewhere. And we don't know everything about magnets or magnetism. And so why not be open to the possibility that if you put magnets in a certain orientation, that they could provide net energy because they set up a local vortex, for example, that harnesses the Earth's magnetic. And it's not a matter of getting something for nothing. It's a matter of putting them in a certain orientation, and voila. Any free energy device is of that ilk. It's pulling energy from the willwork of nature that provides energy free for the taking. You don't call me a crackpot for putting a solar panel on my roof and turning the photons from the sun into electrons. That's not junk science. It's very well established. We know how that works. Yet, a few decades ago, that would have been really exotic stuff. Today, it's mainstream. The Wright brothers, when they got up with a pair of wings and said, "We can fly," the mainstream science says, "No, you can't." And for 4 years, mainstream science dug in their heels and says that's impossible. And yet, here they were flying around and showing scientists that they were wrong on that one. And we're grateful nowadays that that was true, that scientists were wrong on that one. And it'll be the same about magnet motors. And so what we have in a magnet motor is an alleged violation of the known laws of physics, but not of the nature's laws. And I vote for nature's laws and try and find out what those are. And if you've got somebody who claims that something's working, well, I want to give them a chance to prove it. And we have a guy in Turkey by the name of Muammer Yildiz, who has been at this quest for 33 years about. And he's built like 58 of these things. They're not all, he takes them apart and keeps them disassembled for security reasons, because he's had some pretty crazy things happen to him. People who have come along in the name of wanting to help, who have not helped, have tried to steal his technology, including governments and other entities who are supposed to be trustworthy. But he has a patent on this design, and it was actually the patent office who came to him a couple months ago and said, "How would you like to present your technology at the Geneva's Inventor Expo, Geneva, Switzerland," which is a coveted event for inventors all over the world. They get one chance to show their wares, one and only one chance. And the patent office says, "How about you go and demonstrate this magnet motor technology at the Inventors Expo?" And he said, "Sure." Now, this is a technology that has been demonstrated in universities. University of Delft in 2010, and Eindhoven University 2009. And it was the professors, actually, it was the scientists in the room who said, "Okay, we've seen enough, you can turn it off now." You can hear paradigms crashing all around the room. And rather than run it for the 5 hours they were supposed to run it, they cut it short. Not him, not the inventor. It wasn't the inventor saying, no, we can only run this for so many minutes. He was ready to run it the full 5 hours, which is what it was originally scheduled for. Now, with this event in Geneva, Switzerland, we get to run this thing for 5 days, 24 hours each day. Now, the expo itself will only be open for 9 hours, plus a half-hour setup and takedown in the evening for security purposes. And so what they're going to do is they're going to have these things on wheels and roll it out of the parking lot and turn it back on. They'll turn it off. The people who are witnessing will keep a very close eye to make sure that no Mickey Mouse is going on. There's no swapping out of cartridges. There's no
recharging of batteries or
no Mickey Mouse. And bring it out into the parking lot and turn it back on.
Well, now, I'm sure you have expressed to him that that's not nearly as convincing an exhibition as if he just put it in a Lexan box and let it run in a Lexan box 24 hours a day under scrutiny. That would be a hell of a lot more convincing, but that's not in the cards, eh?
Well, he's been wanting to have that done for years, to have a university do a full-fledged test of this thing, and he was trying to get that thing set up back in January. Had a university come along, agreed to do that, and then they wanted to take it apart and measure the battery or the magnets before, during, and after. And he said, "No, I'm sorry, this is intellectual property. You can't look inside because I don't have patent protection on this thing, so you don't get a look under the skirt. You've just got to look at the shaft coming out and measure it. That's your job." Right, 30 days they were supposed to do that.
Sterling, we got to take that break. I'm hearing the bumper music in the background, so please do stand by until after these very important commercial announcements. We'll be back with Sterling Allan right after. And we're back from our first break of the evening, and we've got Sterling Allan as our guest tonight. And just before that rude interruption with those blatantly commercial announcements, we were talking about, how we are going to establish the veracity of Mr. Yildiz magnet motor. And you say you've got a plan how you're going to pull this off, eh, Sterling?
We do. And it's not as good as what I would hope. I would like to see a shaft hooked up to a load through, for example, an alternator, turn an alternator that can then power a 1,000-watt bank of lights. That's the most straightforward load that everyone can relate to. There's some problems with that one, though. They've tried that before. And when they set that up, you see, you need to have the separation between the alternator and the magnet motor of about 1 meter. And because the ferrite that's in the alternator tends to interfere with the magnet motor, and so they need
Sounds like
to...
a good application for hydraulics, but, that's just me. There's a way around everything.
There is. And the problem is that these things, even though they're working prototypes, these are not robustly engineered designs that are ready to last millions of years, and bearings that never wear out. The bearings that he used are not the best bearings for that setup. And so when they set it up, the bearings gave out. There were problems. The magnet motor had problems, and they had to take it apart, and it was embarrassing. And he doesn't want to have that happen at this Geneva Expo. So he wants to go with what he knows works, and which is to put a little propeller on the shaft and to make a nice, good breeze. And according to their measurements from previous tests, that thing is equivalent to about 380 watts. This isn't just a fan. This is a good breeze, a good stiff breeze that comes off of this thing. Not even breeze. It's it's good stiff flow of air that comes off these things. And so
you're saying it would even knock my hair loose, even with all the mousse I put in it.
And in my story today, I was joking with you could have a toupee measurement mechanism where if it blows off the toupee you have to get 1/2 foot away from it, then it's maybe 100 watts. If you're standing 5 feet away, then it's maybe 1,000 watts. And if you're 15 feet away and it's still blowing your toupee off, then you may be closer to 20,000 watts.
Well, I would remind you that the electric cooling fans, radiator cooling fans in automobiles are typically 20-30 watts max.
Mm-hmm.
So a 300 watt draw from a fan, we're talking something that would get an airplane in the air.
No.
Well, yeah, we're talking an airplane propeller. We're talking a big honking propeller.
No, you're talking 400 or 500 horsepower to do that. And we're talking about...
I did it with 32 horsepower. But
you got a plane on?
Yeah,
Are you talking a toy?
No, I'm talking something that got me off the ground. But that's neither here nor there, Sterling. I'm more
I'm serious.
How
many horsepower was that got you off the ground?
Oh, there are guys out there who've done it with as little as 16 on ultralights.
16 horsepower.
Yeah, I was pre ultralight, so I needed 32 horsepower. I actually had.
That's a lot of that's this motor that we're talking about. We're talking about 380 watts, not 38 horsepower. There's 764 watts in 1 horsepower, and so at 380 watts, we're in the ballpark of a house.
Let's give people an idea, so they can get a picture in their head. How big is this fan that this thing is going to turn? So they got a picture in their head of what the test apparatus might look like.
We're talking a fan of about
2 feet in diameter, 3.
No.
Big box fan size, or a little bitty window fan size?
It's maybe a little more than maybe 18 inches or so. Not 18 inches, I would say 14, 16 inches. But we're not exactly sure. One of the things that I wrote in my story today was in brainstorming a better way to measure this thing, because there was kind of a roundabout way. If we put a tube in front of this thing and then put a fan in the back of it so it's a meter away from the device, and then have that thing turning a dynamo, and let's say it powers a 20-watt bulb. That thing, if it's, no, not 20, an 80-watt bulb, if you're running that thing at 20% efficiency, then that's basically saying, okay, that's roughly 380 watts is powering that thing. The wind from that fan is approximately 380 watts.
Let's get right down to brass tacks here. I mean, frankly, if the thing can power itself without any external power input, that in and of itself breaks every law of physics that I'm familiar with. I mean, the magnets in that thing should find equilibrium. They should, it should come to rest when it finds equilibrium. So, if the darn thing can just spin all on its own, that would be pretty impressive. But now, if we could actually measure an excess of power being produced by the thing, now that would be a killer demonstration. Now, I want to see this thing work. I really, really do, and I would love to try to help this guy put together a demonstration that just really kicks ass. But right now I'm looking at this thing saying he's not really going to convince the skeptics with the way he's going, and we will have to pick this up after this break. That was a real short segment. Sorry, we're going to have to do some more blatantly commercial announcements. We'll be back right after. Alrighty, and we are back from our break. I'll tell you, Sterling, those blatant commercial interruptions, you just get on a roll where you're trying to make a point. And now, do you remember where we left off?
Yeah, what I'd like to get into next, though, is let's talk about what would this mean if this were true. What would this mean is you would have in your basement a magnet motor that runs continuously that never stops. Or you could decrease the speed depending on whether your air conditioner is on or whether you're asleep at night, you don't have anything running, maybe a few transistors plugged in for your gadgets powering your, even they're plugged in or not, they're not powering anything, but they're plugged in, they draw a trickle charge. But that's what we're talking about. And so this device, this magnet motor, technically could sit there and run and run and run and never stop, except maybe things wear out after a while. You might want to service your bearings from time to time, and maybe after a period of time the magnets might degauss a little bit, so maybe after a couple 3-4 years you might want to replace the magnets in the thing. But this thing is just it's a base load power. It's like a wind turbine where the wind never shuts off or gives you as much power as you need when you need it. A solar panel is the same thing. And so if this thing is real, that's what we're talking about. And so there's no fuel going into this thing. You don't have a glug, 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 glug where you've got to replace the fuel tank every once in a while. It just runs as much power as you need, it gives you. Depending on if it's a 5 kilowatt device, it can up to 5 kilowatts, it can give you 5 kilowatts. If you need less than that, it turns down, gears down. And so that's the kind of technology we're talking about. So to prove this thing, basically all you have to do is you have to show that the device itself couldn't have some kind of a hidden battery in it. And that's what the skeptics say is, well, you've got something squirreled away in there. You've got, whether it's a spring or you've got, some mechanism that's some hidden energy mechanism in there that's using traditional sources in a squirrely way, and let's prove that it's not that. And so it doesn't take much to do that, because this motor that we're testing, there's actually going to be possibly up to 3 different motors, and we don't know exactly what the size of those are going to be, because he's basically holding some cards tight to his chest. He wants to surprise us, and he doesn't want us to get too excited ahead of time and then be let down. So he's basically wants to undersell and over-deliver. But just on this device that we're talking about, 380 watts is what the fan pulls, but the device is capable of 20 horsepower. Let's do a quick math here. I think that's 17 kilowatts, if I remember right, if you do the math on that. So you take 20, enter, I've got one of these reverse Polish calculators, 746 times, that's 14.9 kilowatts, almost 15 kilowatts of power is what it's capable of. But the thing is, because the bearings are inadequate, it's not ready to run at 15 kilowatts continuously. So he's got a fan stuck on there, and the thing can run for 5 days. We're going to have 5 days and running at 24/7. All it takes, if you do the math on, if you were to jam pack this thing full of batteries, lithium-ion batteries, and you go to Wikipedia and say how much energy could these, if it was full of lithium-ion batteries, how much could it run for? And this 17 watt hours, or 1700 watt hours. Is that right? Yeah. 1700 watt hours is what it could do. And so if we were doing, let's say we talked him into doing this 1000 watt load bank, 2 hours, and you've proven this thing. Well, with the 350 watts or 380 watts, it's going to take 4.5 hours before you can rule out your, some kind of hidden lithium-ion batteries. And that's just for good measure. Let's go all day. 9 hours of things open. We're going to run it 2 times what it could possibly do with lithium-ion batteries. And then do that for 5 days. That's a pretty good show. But somehow you have to prove that in between you haven't replenished something, some little trick thing you've got going on in there. And so what he wants to do is, in the evening, when the show closes and security says, okay, everyone out, we move the thing out to the parking lot. Everyone's watching this thing closely. You've got the witnesses that are walking behind it. And then you turn it back on again, and you run it through the night. And so 24 hours of this thing times 5 days, let's see, at 4.5 hours. I'm going to embarrass myself on the spot here. I'm not going to be doing good math. I have to, focus. But
don't worry about it. It's one of those things where there are going to be some people who are going to believe. There are other people who are going to find numerous holes in the demonstration. I can think of so many ways where a demonstration of this fellow's technology could be put together so that it would absolutely be ironclad proof. And yet, what will we? First of all, what can we as the audience expect to see? Now, we talked a little bit about maybe having a live webcam feed on this thing. I mean, are people who want to watch this demonstration go on?
Yeah, we'd like to have a webcam going on at the full time, both during the day and at night when we're out in the parking lot. And also, we're going to have, obviously, witnesses there in person, people who go to the demo. There are people who are traveling from out of country. Some people are going to, just locals are going to be showing up. And there will be a number of witnesses who will be there 24/7. I mean, not necessarily, there are people we take sleeping, obviously, tag team, pass the baton from one person
any
to the next.
chance we're going to have any well-known skeptics, somebody who have the Swedish Skeptic Society put their hand up? I mean, anybody who would be acknowledged by those who are very skeptical about such claims, anybody of that ilk that might be on the guest list to watch this go down?
I don't know of any. I haven't had any let me know that they're going to be there.
And when is this all going to go down? You might want to give us some idea what the scheduling is going to be like.
That is April 10th through 14th of this month.
Okay.
Starting on Wednesday of next week through the 14th, which is Sunday. And as you mentioned at the beginning, we do have a fundraiser for this. We did meet our goal yesterday. We were hoping to get it by Friday was the drop dead date if we'd have to have the money, or else I wasn't going to go, and we met that goal yesterday. Excellent. So thank you to all those who chipped in, but obviously there's unforeseen expenses and ongoing expenses of this operation. We'd love to go way beyond our goals, so you're always welcome to go to pezwiki.com. Right there at the top, we've got a link for this campaign, and you can chip in.
Please do. Anybody out there who might be willing to help fund the ongoing expenses of bringing you live eyewitness news of such events, please do consider contributing a little bit to the cause. Did you have any other items that you wanted to cover? We're only going to have about another 12 minutes after this next break that's coming up in a minute. We're only going to have about another 12 minutes in this show. Is there anything on your plate besides yieldees, or have we pretty much finished what we wanted to talk about with regards to yieldees?
Well, there is a little bit more I'd like to talk about there. I'm feeling quite frustrated with the level of skepticism that maybe is out there. And in my opinion, if we can show that the rate of speed, and this is what we pulled up today, was what I'd like to do is get the specs for the blade that he's going to be using, the fan blade, and let's have this thing tested in a laboratory. Let's get a curve on it. Let's show that if this thing's turning at 2,000 RPMs, it equals this many watts. If it's running at 1,000 RPMs, it equals this many watts. If you turn it at 3,000 RPMs, it's this many watts. Let's go up. This thing's is capable of 20 horsepower. What's that going to look like if he pulls full throttle?
All right, Sterling, there's that darn bumper music. When we come back from this break, I'll ask that you please summarize your thoughts. You're more than welcome to express any of your frustrations that you didn't quite get out. But we do have to take this break. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. All right, now I hope you out there in the audience showed the advertisers a little love. Without those guys, we don't have a broadcast. So, I hope you paid attention to their messages and ordered one of everything that was advertised on this program tonight. Now, Sterling, back to what we were discussing. As far as yieldees goes, I know you got other things, other alternative energy news that we should probably get out. This is our last segment. We've got about 12 minutes to try and get the rest of it up there. But please do wrap up your arguments on the yieldees demonstration. I know this is a big one for you. We've all got our fingers crossed. We all hope this guy comes through. But as I told you, during the break, I really want this guy to be successful, but damn it, he's gonna have to prove it to me. So please do give us your final arguments on that issue, and then take it away and tell us what else is in the news.
Okay. On the low end, if he has this thing that's turning fast enough to be comparable to 380 watts, or in that ballpark, running that thing all day long will prove that it is what he says it is. Would you not agree with that?
I would be swayed. I would certainly be. It depends on the parameters. I would still like to see it in the Lexan box, and I would like to see it undisturbed. The heck with this. Taking it away and hiding it overnight. Let's have that thing out where it's visible, 24 hours a day.
No, we're not hiding it overnight. We've got a group of people out in the parking lot. We're going to have observers. I'm going to be there for a lot of that.
So it's going to be babysat. Nobody's going to have private access to this thing.
Nope.
Okay. Well, see that.
We're going to have observers, at least 2, I would hope, at all times of the, these not skeptic necessarily. These are not people who want to chew them up and eat them for lunch. But that'd be great if they wanted to be there. That'd be fine. If they're welcome to be there as well. Parking lot, there's plenty of room for people to hang out. There may be a chance that we'll be able to get a room in a neighboring, there's a conference room next door that's just 50 meters or less from the PAL Expo, and it's only $1,000 a day. So if we get somebody to spring for that, that would be nice.
$1,000 a day.
Yeah.
I think I'd take my sleeping bag and be sleeping under the stars, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to look forward to what evidence we can see on this yieldees thing. We really do wish him a lot of luck. We hope he pulls off a very convincing demonstration. The fact that the device is going to be observable for the whole time and that it won't be, privated somewhere during its downtime, that is an important element to making it a convincing demonstration.
And one of the demonstrations, one of the devices hopefully that's going to be there is actually quite see-through. I mean, it's not like the one motor we're describing where you've got this closed case and you don't know what's inside. This thing's going to be fairly transparent, and so the components you can see are quite quite small, and so the what you can rule out as a hidden battery gets much smaller, and the amount of, the way he puts it is, the skeptics will be proven uh, wrong in a very short period of time if he can get that thing running. So, I don't want to build your anticipation too high, because it's always best to undersell and overdeliver, and I'm trying to
Agreed.
stay true to that. So it's hard for me to do that. I tend to do the opposite. I tend to build things up and then get disappointed. So forgive me for that. In other news, there are some fun developments. And this was actually a story that came out yesterday, and we posted it in our news today. There's a bladeless wind turbine from Delft University, which is actually where one of the professors who's going to be at this Yildiz demo is from. Same over in the Netherlands.
Wait a minute, a bladeless windmill.
A bladeless windmill.
That is a contradiction of terms. Do you have a picture of this thing on your website?
We do. It looks like a window from a jet, and a super enlarged with horizontal, not blades, but what would you call them? It's developed by the electrical engineering, mathematical, and computer science faculty at Delft. Uses the movement of electrically charged water droplets to generate power.
Whoa, baby! This is sounding so. No moving parts. We got a windmill here with no moving parts.
And the story was not dated April 1st. It was dated March 31st. I posted it today, April 1st, because it's kind of a fun April 1 story.
Okay, give people the website where they can go see this article, because anybody interested in alternative energy technologies might be very interested in such a development, might want to read that article. Where do they go see it?
PureEnergyBlog.com is our story today.
All one word, right? No,
Yep.
no special. Okay, PureEnergyBlog.com. All right, well, that's fascinating, and this comes out of the Delft University. That's a very reputable outfit. They're tied in with Philips, or used to be. I'm not sure if they still are or not. But that's fascinating. Bladeless turbine. That's cool.
And then another one that'll be new for the Rents audience, not necessarily for your weekly audience. We featured this last week. A guy named out of Canada, Michael McInnes, has come up with a magnet motor. He posted a video on YouTube. He shows the thing, and it's quite, bare bones. It's skeletal, and you don't see all the skin on it, so nothing's covered. And he does a walk around of it. Then he puts the thing into position so that the rotor and the stator are lined up, and the thing starts spinning, and it accelerates and accelerates. Supposedly goes up to 2,500 RPM, which is apparently where it reaches equilibrium. And they're working on that thing. They're not quite ready to bring in additional witnesses. We tried to get one of the guys from your show actually called me, or not called me, emailed me, and said, hey, I'm an hour and a half away from this guy. And I called Michael or sent him an email, said, hey, could we have this guy come in? And he said, not yet. Let's wait till May. They're working on a smaller version and want to get more power, more robust, and then they'll be opening the doors again. So just a little tease on that one.
Yeah, I did see that video, and frankly, the video evidence that I saw was very intriguing. I will not say convincing, but it was very intriguing. I think if I was an hour and a half away from him, I would be trying to make arrangements to go see that one in person myself.
Yeah,
That is of the same genre as this one you're going to Europe to see. It's an all magnetic motor that apparently spins by magnetic repulsion and attraction. It's a fascinating idea. Physics says that the various magnets, the magnetic forces, should eventually find equilibrium and come to rest, and this seems to be disproving that.
Yeah, the fact that it accelerates, of course, like you said, it's not convincing because they don't move it, so you can rule out wires coming up through the table into the side to run some hidden motor. They don't lift it up to rule out some kind of induction system going on. So it's not fully convincing, but it's pretty convincing.
Or, as I say, intriguing.
Intriguing, yes.
Yes. In any case,
That shouldn't be working. That the one that we're talking about that Yildiz has, it was witnessed on two settings by that professor from Delft for 5 hours continuous. And it was him that asked to shut it off, not Mr. Yildiz. It was a professor says, okay, that's good. I'm happy. And 4.5 hours rules out, I don't know what the load was on it, but I'm guessing it was the fan, which is what he typically demonstrates there. So another time it ran for 15 days, supposedly.
Well, again, my argument on such a thing was if the thing can spin itself and counteract its own internal friction and inertia, that in and of itself is pretty darn cool. Now, if I could be there and grab hold of the shaft and try and stop it and not be able to stop it, now that would be a very convincing proof. If it rips the flesh off my hand, I'd go to the hospital with a smile on my face.
Yep. Yeah, I wish we could do that. We got to be nice to his baby because he actually is headed to a university after the Geneva test. He doesn't want to run any tests that are going to be jeopardizing its function because he wants to be able to run it through the ringer at a university under the proper laboratory settings. And so that is still in the cards. It's just being postponed because of this Geneva Expo. So, I have to joke. Because just think about this. This thing supposedly is capable of 20 horsepower. You get that blade spinning with 24 horsepower power, you're going to start moving the thing across the floor if it's got wheels on it. And we could start taking the thing out in the parking lot and charge for rides, put a seat on it, and have some fun.
Put it on a skateboard. Now, I might take a ride. So what else is happening in the news? Anything else of interest to tease these people about interesting, quirky alternative energy technologies that might be out there?
This past week, we got posted a video of a documentary that's been done of the old Joe cell that quite a few of us just kind of put on the back burner and wrote it off as, if somebody comes up with something really convincing, we'll dust it off the shelf. But this is a pretty good documentary video. It shows a lot of testimonials. It shows people telling stories about what they saw, what they did. Not just one guy, but several people who have done replications, attempts, and wrote on this thing, and it kept running when it was supposed to. It was out of fuel, and it still kept on going, and it's a pretty good job. And there's also some update information on that. That was we published that on March 27th. Along with some recent correspondence of people who are still going after that technology and some forums that are trying to keep that alive. So that one's interesting. As a Joe cell basically is running on water, but not as fuel. It basically, from what I understand, it creates like a proton that goes through the engine block and runs the engine. You don't even have to have an open aperture between the fuel.
I've heard stories about levitation. We got 1 minute, Sterling, but levitation and Joe cells. I'll watch the documentary and keep an open mind. But some of the stuff I remember about the claims for Joe cells was a little over the top. We got about a minute, Sterling. So last few items that you wanted to cover, you're gonna have to cover them fast.
Well, bottom line is free energy is for real. And these things that we're talking about on our show are not just out there, maybe emerging. They're working prototypes, and we'll see these things get to market one of these days soon.
All righty, Sterling Allan, thank you so much for your presentation this evening. And please, anybody out there who might be willing to chip in a little bit to keep Sterling bringing us these interesting alternative energy news bits, think seriously about going to pesn.com, hit that donate button, and help him out a little bit. Let's keep the information moving. And to the audience, thank you much for watching the Alternative Energy Hour. We'll have a guest host, Woody O'Brien, will be along right after these important commercial messages.